Hi, this is Liqian Ren, Director of Modern Alpha Wisdom Tree ETFs. Welcome to China of Tomorrow podcast series, where we navigate China, India, Japan, and the broad emerging markets with members of Wisdom Tree and other industry leaders. Hi, today is January 22nd, 2024. This is Li Chen. We'll quickly touch on Taiwan's election results and China's ongoing response to the burst of a housing bubble. Welcome to China of Tomorrow podcast. You can hear us in various platforms and also on Wisdom Tree's website. First, Taiwan's current party, DPP, won in a three-way race for about 40% of the votes, beating the pro-China engagement party, KMT, by about 6%. KMT did capture more votes in the legislature, so now it's the largest party. And it's still 3 seats short of majority because the third party got 8 seats. First, my prediction was wrong, and I will explain which part I was wrong and which part I was right. Secondly, I still believe the military conflict continued to be a low scenario, but risk of something going wrong definitely has increased because the current party is much more pro-independence. And thirdly, the third party's strong showing was a surprise. But I think in big part was also many young actually thought they had a chance to win after the third party released internal poll showing they were second instead of third. It remained to be seen whether third parties can be viable in Taiwan. Taiwan has had many third parties that have captured many seats in legislature, but gradually died down. So that will be really interesting in the next 4 years. First, in terms of Taiwan doesn't have a poll 10 days before the election. So if you actually take the last set of polls, about 15 polls, and take an average, that results is actually very close to the final results. It's not the best forecaster. One of the best forecaster was UDN United Daily News. It's one of the top Taiwan newspaper. But again, I myself is a quantitative researcher, and I probably should have stick with the numbers I was tracking. But I think I saw some momentum by KMT, and also I think I underestimated the third party's strength. The third party ultimately captured about 26%, and the KMT party lost by 6%. And originally I thought the KMT party doesn't have more than 20% because they were in the third place. I was surprised a lot of people still voted for the third party, maybe not knowing or knowing that they have almost no chance. So in terms of in prediction market, it does predict very well that the DPP party won, but it was wrong that they gave higher odds for the DPP for the third party, not TPP, more than the second party KMT, which won, about 33% of the votes. So the prediction market, the final winner was right, but in terms of the order was quite wrong. Overestimated the chance for the third party. So these are, things I'm learning, and I think with the U.S. election coming up, people will be looking at polls, particularly the polls before the final votes, really quantitatively. And as a quantitative researcher, again, I told my friends that, look, I should stuck with the model more, and that's why I think people have biases. When people think about investing, they thought they see something and they use judgment, and sometimes the judgment turns out to be true, but a lot of times those judgment can be biased. And again, reminding myself again, and probably also one of the reasons I like quantitative investing, like effective investing, is that it takes the individual bias out of. So in the future, I think there were a few, about 10 media outlets. Their polls were much closer than the other 4 or 5. So I think in the future, when people look at Taiwan's elections, the final set of polls will become more important when people look at those. In terms of for mainland China, the local sentiment continue to be negative. I mentioned a little bit before, with the housing bubble burst. Many were hoping for monetary and physical stimulus, like for example, today, China's loan prime rate, which is the rate that's anchored for many mortgages and loans, didn't change, which was not unexpected because this rate is usually tied to another median liquidity facility rate. Um, that didn't change a few days ago, but I think a lot of people still was kind of hoping for monetary response. And I'm sorry, to really, I've talked to this to my clients, and also I've openly said this many, many times. There are similarities between US and China, a lot of them. I myself, live in both countries. But in terms of policy response, it's one area that's going to be very different. If COVID is any response, you will see, the the virus is the same, but the responses can be very different. And China's central bank usually only respond when economic situation is very bad. And China is usually unlikely to do stimulus with US this time around as it did in 2008. If people remember the 2008 stimulus or bailout here, but many people do not know is China's 2008 stimulus was as big as US, considering China's economy is smaller. And it's because both at that time US and China was in a good relationship and both have a coordinated policies. So that's just not possible anymore with US and China in a bad relationship right now. So I think again, China will do something. The monetary policy will be on a little bit easing, and physical stimulus will come like a little bit. But when you think about China, you have to look at China's constraints and China's institutional setups. Just recently, China also changed laws and says monetary policy, the central bank ultimately has to report to not only the state council, which is the government, but also to the party central, which is for people who don't know China as much, China's leadership is mostly parallel. So for every city, you have a party secretary, which is, all evaluated by the party system. And then you have a mayor, which is the government system. And many times, usually the party secretary has more power. That's mostly sometimes, through some personal characteristics and possibly some mayors could become a party secretary down the road. They also have significant power. But again, China's setup is very different. So when we think about, stimulus or policy response, it really need to be thought of carefully how China is going to be different. Overall, investing in China, I think regardless China is going up, China equity is going up or going down. And this point, I've made this point in many different platforms as well. People are going to look at emerging market, but exclude China strategies very seriously, because people are going to look at their China exposure in their portfolio much more separately than just the emerging market. Again, I think for investing in China requires significant risk tolerance. I do not believe US and China will be in a military a conflict, but the headlines will continue to be negative. US's containment policy of China, tech sanctions of China, they are still going to be in full force and will be more because this is the election year in the US. Chinese companies face domestic consumption headwinds due to housing downturn. On the other hand, the local consumption, considering China is not doing much stimulus, the local consumption is holding up pretty well because typical Chinese households have significant high savings rate, so that helps to smooth consumption. So again, thank you for listening, and I try to treat these things in smaller bites. But if you interested, you can follow me and my colleagues on Twitter to read more through our blogs. And if you interested for a little bit longer form, we'll continue to bring regular updates on China and strategies in Asia. I think people realizing that right now Japan is definitely getting more of the different cycle, because most people are very down on China, but Japan, if China did do well, Japan can capture a lot of those positive headwinds. So I think many people are looking at Japan focused strategies, and we have a lot of currency hedged strategies. We not only look at the equity, but we have dynamic currency hedging in many of our international portfolios. So again, you can definitely check all these with more details on wisdomtree.com/investments. Thank you for listening. And then in 2 weeks, China will be on the 9-day vacation for Chinese New Year. But I will continue to do the podcast every 2 weeks. I think again we will learn more about the next year's goal, where the government usually set the growth goal in early March. January, I think for now the goal is still going to be set close to 5%, but we will see. Sometimes things can change very quickly in China. Thank you for listening.